She was nobody. That was the point. 12,000 people survived on Dust by becoming nobody, by learning to move through corroded corridors without casting a shadow, by trading scavenged progenitor components for water shipments that arrived less and less frequently each year, by never saying the name of the house they had been born into, because that house had been erased, and speaking its name in certain systems was still punishable by death. Serethi Voss was the best of them at being nobody. She had practiced since she could walk. Then Maren Duskwell's throat gave out. The old ash singer had coated her vocal cords with mineral paste for 40 years, memorizing the languages and songs and genealogies of dying civilizations so that something survived after the last dome failed. On Dust, she had found an infant in a wrecked transport's emergency pod, genetic markers she recognized, a bloodline she knew was supposed to be extinct, and she had raised the child and told her nothing. Until the mineral paste had eaten enough of her throat that she had perhaps a single night of whispered speech remaining. She used it to say a set of coordinates and a name, Solabri. Then she was silent. Then she was gone. Serethi stood in the amber-lit warren with the data chip necklace still warm from Maren's throat, and understood for the first time that she had never been nobody at all. She had been hidden. The coordinates encoded in the chips did not point to any world she recognized. They pointed through the galaxy's most contested border, through the Velaris Nebula, towards something that had no name on any chart she had ever seen. She pressed the necklace against her sternum and felt the chip's corroded edges bite into her palm, and she made the first choice in a sequence she could not yet see the end of. She memorized the coordinates and she began to move. The Kailamar Exchange orbited a dwarf star at the edge of contested space, a wheel-shaped station in trading house neutrality, where discretion was the only currency that held value. Dr. Eolin Mars operated from a private clinic on the medical ring. 2 scan tables, a holographic display column, a single viewport onto the rotating starfield. She had been waiting for someone with Serethi's genome for 11 years. She did not say this immediately. She ran the mapping first, her augmented diagnostic lenses flicking through spectra as the display column bloomed with data no one was supposed to still possess. Eolin told her plainly, the binding scars would come. They had already begun, faint luminous veins at the base of Serethi's skull, barely visible in low light. When the binding completed, those veins would spread across her neck, her shoulders, her arms. They would not stop at the surface. The progenitor network would overwrite her baseline cognition. She would still be Serethi, for a while. Then she would be something else. Serethi asked how long. Eolin said she did not know. No one had survived a full binding to answer the question. She left the exchange as a fugitive. House Thyros' intelligence apparatus, the Silent Choir, had already flagged her genome against the Kailamar Exchange's medical records. Vex Karen, senior choir staff, had already transmitted the alert. The galaxy knew what Serethi was before Serethi had decided what to do about it. She moved through the station concourse with her head down and her boots quiet on the ochre-walled corridor, past the tea vendor in the recessed alcove, past the information board scrolling trade indices in a dozen scripts, and she did not run, because running was how you told everyone in a sanctuary station that you had something to hide. House Thyros found her in the Death World corridor between Dust and the Velaris Nebula. He came in civilian merchant clothes slightly too well tailored for the stations he frequented, his prosthetic left hand matte black with exposed joint mechanisms he never bothered to cover, a thin surgical scar running from his right temple to behind his ear. He came not as his father's son, but as the man who had already chosen to be something else. He told her what she was running toward. He told her what the drift cannons were. He told her his father had known the location of the seed for decades and said nothing. She did not trust him. She went with him anyway. On Phelan, the bone-white, salt-flat death world where old Senna held court, a chemical storm rolled across the horizon, a curtain of rust-orange and sulfur-yellow particulate 3 kilometers high, lit from within by static discharge. It forced them inside the central dome. Old Senna sat in her ring of ash singers, skin like cracked clay, milky white eyes that had not seen clearly in decades, 11 data chip necklaces clicking softly when she moved. Her hands trembled at rest. When she began to sing, they went perfectly still. The phrase embedded in old Senna's melody was not a greeting. It was a warning, encoded into ash singer lullabies for a century by a progenitor who had built the door and then hidden the key to lock it. The cradle was never meant to be opened from the outside. The return protocol was not a resurrection, it was a consumption, and there was a kill switch. But it could only be executed by a fully bound conduit choosing, of their own volition, to burn out their binding connection. Old Senna had carried this warning for 60 years without understanding it. She delivered it now, and her mineral-paste throat finally gave out, and she wept without knowing she was weeping. Lord Thyros fired the drift cannons 3 days later. The habitable moon in the Velaris Nebula's navigable corridor, 60,000 people in quiet anonymity, modular habitation units connected by covered walkways, agricultural domes catching the nebula's violet light, ceased to exist. Where it had been, a spreading field of superheated debris expanded outward through the violet gas, turning the clouds white-hot at the point of impact. The nebula's violet was bleached to pale grey in a sphere 300 kilometers across. Nothing remained that was recognizable as land, atmosphere, or life. Serethi heard the drift cannon's discharge from her shuttle. Her binding scars blazed on her neck, the progenitor network recognizing the weapon's signature the way a body recognizes a scream. She did not turn back. She pressed her palm against the viewport and watched the pale grey sphere expand through the violet gas, and made a decision that had been assembling itself since Marin's last night. She was not going to the cradle to claim anything. She was going to the drift cannon control core first. Vex Karen's transmissions, fed through a jury-rigged encrypted terminal on Kale's shuttle's co-pilot console, gave them the approach corridor to the drift cannon structure. The choir station in the nebula was a matte black shadow nestled against an asteroid body, visible only when nebula light caught its edges. The drift cannon itself was progenitor architecture, dark alien material veined with circuitry that flickered to life in Serethi's wake as she walked the access corridor toward the control core. The floor responded to her footsteps with faint illumination. The weapon recognized her blood. Guard Captain Roan met them at the corridor junction with a short blade already drawn. Kale's prosthetic matte black hand caught the blade at the joint. The fight was brief and brutal and left Roan unconscious on the amber-lit floor. Serethi did not stop walking. She pressed her scarred left forearm to the crystalline interface panel in the drift cannon control core, and the walls blazed. Geometric patterns cascaded outward like a language being spoken in architecture. The weapon's firing protocols locked. The second volley Lord Thyros had already authorized never fired. Empress Regent Lysara Aethonis received the intelligence from Vex Karen's network 6 hours after the moon's destruction. She stood at the head of her conference table in the Regent's chamber atop the throne spire, the Regent's mantle catching the light from the floor-to-ceiling viewports, its luminous star map threads shifting in real time, one patch near her left shoulder already gone dark. She read the casualty figure. She read the drift cannon lockout. She read Serethi's name. Then she pressed her right hand flat against the conference table, steadied the tremor that had been spreading from her fingers to her wrist for weeks, and committed her fleet to the Velaris Nebula. She did not ask permission. There was no one left to ask. The battle in the nebula was not a battle so much as a reckoning. Lysera's fleet moved through the charted corridors with the formation data Vex Karen had fed them. The positions of every Thyros vessel, the gaps in every defensive screen. Lord Thyros's flagship was boarded. He was taken alive, or what remained of him was taken alive. The implant blazing white in his left eye socket, the man behind it receding like a tide going out. Kyle stood in the command chamber doorway and looked at his father in the magnetic locked chair and did not speak. His father, in the last lucid window he would have, told Kale the seed's location, told him the truth about the severed hand. Then the window closed. Kale buried him on dust. He wrapped the body in ship hull fabric and carried it to the surface above the seed. The rust-orange metallite desert, the hexagonal fracture pattern in the ground that formed a progenitor glyph 3 kilometers across when seen from orbit. He placed his father's blade in the grave. The wind carried particulate that tasted of iron. He stood there a long time, his prosthetic left hand resting on the metallite soil, and he felt the ground pulse once beneath his palm, deep, geological, the seed responding to the bloodline standing above it. He noted it. He did not activate it. He went back to his ship. The Cradle was a dark sphere the size of a small moon, suspended motionless between 2 brown dwarf stars in deep space beyond any charted system. As Serethi's ship approached, its surface began separating along geometric fault lines, each section rotating and extending outward like petals of a flower designed by a mathematician's nightmare. The interior glowed blue-white through the gaps. At full extension, the Cradle resembled a vast open hand, its palm a spherical chamber where cascading progenitor script took vaguely humanoid shape. The Architect. Not a body, but a presence. Not a god, but a system that had been waiting 8,000 years for the right blood to open the door. Iolan told her what the readouts showed. The binding would complete within hours. After that, the overwrite would begin. Serethi would still be herself for perhaps a day. Then she would be the Architect's conduit, and the progenitor consciousness would reconstitute through her body, and the galaxy's infrastructure would be maintained forever by something that had never been human and would never choose to stop. The Architect offered her everything. Infrastructure that would never fail, a galaxy that would never again lose a dome or a canal or a water shipment. It spoke in harmonics that resonated in her sternum. It was not lying. It was simply not telling the whole truth about what she would no longer be. Serethi thought about Marin's hands, mineral paste residue permanently darkening the creases, a necklace of corroded data chips, a voice that carried through collapsed tunnels like something geological. She thought about old Senna changing the key of her welcome song. She thought about 60,000 people whose names she would never know, who had died because a system of inherited power had no mechanism for restraint. She thought about what it would mean to become the new version of that system, benevolent, permanent, unchosen. Then she pressed her binding scars to the kill switch interface. The severance was not silent. The spherical chamber blazed white and then went dark. The Architect's cascading script fragmenting mid-sentence, geometric shapes dissolving into dormant code. The binding scars on Serethi's neck and shoulders flared, a light so intense that Island shielded her eyes and then faded, not dimmed, gone. The luminous veins that had been spreading since Marin's last night receded to bare skin. The progenitor command channel was severed. The network was autonomous. The galaxy's infrastructure was now mortal. Iolan documented it in real time. First binding reversal in recorded history. She did not remove the corroded data chip from the chain at her throat. The galaxy did not end. It changed. Starfall drives continued working, but would eventually fail. Irrigation systems persisted, but could not self-repair. Sealed domes maintained pressure, but could not adapt. The Continuity Compact moved immediately. Sorvath Cade's portable codex interfaces selectively reactivating dormant progenitor systems on worlds that submitted to trading house governance, each activation degrading the local network faster than natural decay, trading long-term survival for short-term control. Solvath Cade, in her director's chamber at Arantis Station, the massive silver-white cylinder rotating against the tri-coloured light of its trinary star system, moved her holographic displays to show real-time infrastructure collapse across every world that had not yet submitted to the compact. The iron tally moved on Calanthe. The third codex fragment, the one Cade had suppressed, the one containing the progenitor design specification for governance without rulers, began surfacing in the networks that Tessith Karen had built and then betrayed, and then, in the end, could not quite bring herself to fully destroy. On Jessad, Halia Vaughn tied a tourniquet with her teeth and resumed firing. The canal network's progenitor glyphs pulsed faintly in the night, unattended, still working, counting down toward the day they would need human hands to maintain them. Rolling agricultural plains gone patchwork, green where the irrigation still reached, dust yellow where it had been cut, black where the granaries were burned, stretched to a horizon punctuated by bombed-out concrete silos. The ground was old, the canals were older, and the people standing on both were going to have to choose what came next without a god to choose for them. Kyle sent Serethi the seed's coordinates from dust. She received them in the Cradle's outer chamber, sitting on the floor of dark alien alloy with her back against a wall that no longer responded to her presence. Vaylon Drace knelt at the flat panel that had risen from the floor, reading progenitor script that rearranged itself as he watched. His own binding scars faded, but his knowledge intact. The last priest of a god that had chosen not to return. Serethi read the coordinates. She looked at the dead walls of the Cradle. She thought about a terraforming engine buried under a death world. Not a weapon of destruction, but a machine for rebuilding a biosphere, designed to be operated not by blood, but by language. She stood up. She was nobody again. No binding, no bloodline access, no inheritance the galaxy could use to crown her or kill her. She was a woman in a patched envirosuit with chemical burn scars on her left forearm and pale grey eyes and boots wrapped in salvaged cable. She was exactly who she had been on Dust before Marin's last night. Except that she knew the cost now. She had paid it. And she was choosing, with full knowledge, to walk back toward the galaxy that had tried to consume her and build something in it that did not require a throne. The throne spire still rose from Ethan Prime into low orbit, dark iridescent material etched with progenitor script that no longer glowed. The script was still there. It would be there for centuries. But it was no longer speaking. The celestial throne sat empty as it had for years and would continue to sit empty, and the question of what replaced it was not answered by a bloodline or a weapon or a god's return. It was answered slowly, imperfectly, in the language of canals and water shipments, and the names of civilizations that ash singers had kept alive in their mineral-paced throats, so that something would survive to be remembered. Serethi Voss had been hidden for 25 years. She was done hiding. She was also done being crowned. What she was now was present. And that, the chroniclers would write, was the most dangerous thing she had ever been. Not because she carried a bloodline or a binding or a weapon the galaxy could not survive, but because she knew the cost of every throne she had ever been offered, and she had refused them all, and she was still standing, and she was walking toward the work that had no name yet. The slow, unglamorous, necessary work of a galaxy learning to hold itself without gods.